welcome to the Under Season podcast, and we have a special episode, and we have some guests in the studio.
Yeah!
So this is some UK barbecue royalty here. It's Shauna, Guinn, and Sam Evans.
I'm absolutely delighted to be here down under. We can't wait to get into this, Jay.
Okay, so bear with me while I get through this. But you started off doing pop-ups in the UK in about 2013. You were the first to bring American-style barbecue, or one of the first to bring American-style barbecue to Europe. You're cookbook authors. You've owned an award-winning, booked-out restaurant. You've had your own TV show. You're the host of The Cutting Room at Meatopia, which is an event I love. And you've appeared at Feastival, Black Deer, Pub in the Park, C2C, Summer Camp. There's too many to list. You've travelled the world. And most importantly, you've made a career out of something you're passionate about, which is amazing. And welcome back to Australia and welcome into the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what the career highlight is, though, Jay? It's being here on the Under Season Barbecue podcast. We love what you guys do, and we absolutely love Australia. Yeah. So, delighted to be here.
No, big love. Thanks for having us on.
Okay, and when was the last time you were here in Australia?
2003, 2004.
Okay, so it's a long time between drinks, as we'd say.
Yeah. I mean, we don't look old enough to have even travelled on our own at that time, but we were. And we loved it. We fell in love with Australian produce, the scenery, obviously the territories are just incredible. So there's been a few changes, I think, we've noticed since we've been back, but and barbecue being one of them.
Yeah, no, it's really taken off in Australia, as it has a lot around the world, really.
Yeah.
What I love is we've travelled so much of Australia, and when we meet Australians, it turns out that we've actually seen more of this country than many Australians. The first road trip we did around Australia, we went from Sydney the whole way up to Cookstown, to Uluru, back down Great Ocean Road, 68,000 miles around this wonderful country. And I wish we could do it again.
That is awesome. Yes, you have seen more of this country than I have. Okay, let's get started on the episode because we've got a ton to get through. Now, it's a bit of a tradition on the episode to start with our fuck-up of the week, and we've asked you to provide one.
Yes. Okay, well, this is probably our worst fuck-up, as you'd say. So what you're looking at there is about 20 kilos of carbonised ribs. And so these went in overnight. This is at the restaurant. A piece of wood had fallen into the firebox, which slowly smouldered, and then it lit, which caused a grease fire in the smoker. And it's all like a closed chamber, so there wasn't any danger of the restaurant burning down. But I came into lunch service, and this is what I had to cook with. And then it was about 3 hours till lunch. And then I quickly discovered that you could cook ribs in 3 hours after this. So, yeah, it's literally fossilised.
Well, it proves that it can happen to the best of us.
Yes,
Anyone who's in barbecue that says they haven't had a disaster is lying.
When you asked us for the fuck up, of course we wanted to show something that we'd really messed up big time. But that is an expensive mistake. In the context of a restaurant, you think of how many rib plates we could have served. Yeah, that's expensive.
It's around about, in British pounds, about 150 quid's worth of meat, which we would have then turned into about 750 quid's worth of sales. So, but there we go. Now I know. Don't leave pieces of wood just smouldering in a firebox and go to the pub. Finish work.
Right, well, we've got Si in the studio, and on our regular podcast, we normally do bark or burnt. And Si, what is it?
100% bark, baby.
It's bark.
He's saying bark from the background. Thank you, Si. That's very kind
of you.
Okay, so let's move on to something that is different. We have never done it on the show before, but when you're a foodie or when you're into food, and anyone that's into barbecue is into food in general, but there's always that one dish that changed everything. And I've asked you to nominate one. So tell me a little bit about this place.
Well, we've just had a 2-month culinary road trip around Mexico, and if you told me that prior to going to Mexico that this would be the standout dish, I wouldn't have believed you. Because obviously we specialise in meat and we love meat, but here we are in Lavadura de Hoyo in Mexico. This is Chef Talia Barrios, one of the most famous chefs in Oaxaca. And yes, what you're looking at there is a plate of tomatoes.
This is the dish.
This is the dish.
This is the one you picked.
This was our favourite dish that we had in Mexico.
But it's not just any plate of tomatoes. As much care and attention that we put into cuts of meat and, like when we harvest it, when we don't, how we cure it or dry age it. The same is applied here to these tomatoes. And what was incredible about this plate of tomatoes is because, MSG is naturally present in tomatoes and we love it. But there were some that tasted like peaches, some that tasted like apricots. There was even tomatoes that tasted kind of porky and meaty because of all that lovely naturally occurring MSG. It was the most surprising and delightful thing that I've eaten in a very, very long time.
Because there's a real skill of, first of all, you've got the terroir, if you like. It's the fertile ground in which they grow it. And then you have to decide at what point do you pick it. And then you cure it. They actually have a curing room where they cure these tomatoes. And then you have to decide what is the optimum time to slice it? What is the room temperature required to make sure that when you eat it, it's at its most delicious?
But then it's also how to slice it as well. Like some just go straight in half. Some are like carpaccio. And that all makes a difference to how the, feels in the mouth and how those flavours explode. I mean, it was honestly incredible.
Well, the one thing that surprised me the most is that's the professional photo that's taken by, with lighting and all the rest of it. And this is your photo. It looks just as bloody good. It's a fantastic looking dish.
And I mean, credit to the chef, Talia, because in Oaxaca, a lot of the cuisine and a lot of the restaurants are very male dominated. So you've just got this woman who is prepared to say, you know what, I'm going to celebrate vegetables. I'm going to celebrate the vegetables of the Oaxacan region, and look how proud she is. I mean, she's such a fierce woman and a young woman as well.
And I think she's just got a Michelin star as well. So I think this year she just had a Michelin star for Levadura de Olla. So go Talia.
And I want to apologise.
Vegetable necklace.
I was
tomatillos.
It is tomatillos.
It's a tomatillo necklace.
I thought it was sprouts when I first saw it, but I mean, it's not. I think they're little tomatillos or green tomatoes.
Listen, I know that all of your lovely viewers and listeners of this podcast are probably going to be scrolling and putting all sorts of comments, but you know what? I'm here for it. Come for us, because unless you've had that plate of tomatoes, you haven't had a tomato.
Anyone that knows a bit about food knows that that's just MSG on a plate.
Yes.
It doesn't get much better.
And they set it on this sort of like a beetroot puree, which just sort of sits underneath it. And the only seasonings on that is like a tiny little sprinkle of salt and a tiny little bit of olive oil. And that is it.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to hide on this plate of food.
Yeah, we smashed it.
Rightio. It looks fantastic. So let's move on to the next topic, which is going to be your top 3 people in barbecue. And obviously, you've had a great journey and you've probably met a lot of pitmasters over the years. So let's get started with the first one.
I'm going to talk to you about the man that changed our lives, Aaron Franklin. Everybody knows Aaron Franklin from Franklin's Barbecue in Texas. But we quit our careers in 2012 to go on a road trip across the southern states of America to uncover the secrets of American barbecue. And we visited all of those states in the deep south, but it wasn't until we met Aaron and his wife that we realised that barbecue could be something that we could specialise in and bring back to the UK. Because at that time, the whole concept of slow and low barbecue we didn't really know too much about. So one of the first things that Aaron Franklin said to us is, girls, if you open up a restaurant, you will never make any money from barbecue. And here we are 13 years later, and I know exactly what he means.
You got to sell a lot of chicken wings.
Yes.
But it was, I think what really, inspired us, I mean, we ate at something like 86 barbecue joints, coast to coast in the States on this journey. The thing that really inspired us about Aaron was his sourcing of brisket, the sourcing of the ribs, and it was really specific. It wasn't just going to Costco, because butchers are few and far between in the States. And, his Angus cattle, that he sourced his briskets from was so specific and well looked after. And then obviously he made all his own pits, which, I know a lot of pitmasters do, but, I could really get behind these ethics of it and this sort of hand-spun nature of it, of which he designed these pits that he knew how to use. And that's definitely something that we took back to the UK with us.
I think a lot of it as well, it was like, we're quite geeky. Sam in particular is quite geeky and quite nerdy. And sorry, Aaron, if you're listening, but so is he. And, to devote your whole life to primarily at that point, which is one cut of meat, which was the brisket. That felt like something that we could really get behind. And you know what? It's been a real challenge over the last 13 years trying to convince people in the UK that brisket is worth the money and it's worth going to a restaurant for. And you know what? You don't see it on too many menus in the UK because, as you well know, it's a really difficult cut of meat to master. And then the journey coming back as well, because the way that meat is produced in America is very different to the way it's produced in the UK. So, you know, the challenge of trying to get an excellent brisket that's grass-fed and get that to taste like something that is grain-fed in America is completely different. So we've been on a real journey trying to educate people on how to cook it and how to eat it.
Yeah, it's a lot of pasture-led farming in the UK. You know, grass is free, you know, and that's the way that we've enjoyed meat, you know, whether it's, you know, lamb, beef, pork. You know, we've enjoyed this sort of like long grazing pastured meat for a long time. And I think what's happening now in, you know, the trend in the UK is that we're looking more towards ex-dairy, you know, for those sort of fattier cuts.
Or Wagyu,
you know,
the sort of Scottish Wagyu.
Well, yeah, you know, there's all sorts of, you know, stuff like that coming in because it's really difficult to cook a grass-fed brisket that's really lean on the barbecue. So and we're still trying to look within the UK of how we get these cuts that, you know, have enough of a fat content that we can cook with. So,
but if you say the word brisket to most people over the age of, I'd say, 40 in the UK, they immediately think of their nans buying rolled briskets.
Hot roast.
That they do as a pot roast on a stove that would bubble and boil away for all day, and you end up with something that's really dry and not very tasty. You know, to present like a slice of fatty brisket, or even the notion of burnt ends, I don't think anyone in the UK would think that burnt ends actually are just the burnt bits on the ends. But
anybody outside of barbecue for sure. Yeah.
Well, to me, you know, there's legacy barbecue joints, and you would have beat, you know, Smitty's and, you know, Lockhart, there's plenty of them. But he kind of pioneered that second wave of barbecue.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we called it New School Barbecue. But he did pioneer that. And still to this day, to his credit, anyone that I know that's done a barbecue pilgrimage still say his brisket is the best brisket in America.
Yeah, it is. And also, can I just give you props for that list that you made, by the way? I thought that was fascinating, where you separated out the legacy with the New School, with the old school.
And the third wave.
Have you seen that list?
I was
It's
going to
amazing.
call it first wave, second wave, third wave. This, you know, coffee. I don't know about wine, but coffee definitely did that first wave, second wave, third wave. And I feel like he pioneered that second wave.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, I love that. That's if I was going to do this barbecue pilgrimage all over again, I'd be taking your list with me, I think, and start ticking them off.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you evolve, I think you've got to appreciate the old school barbecue. You've got to appreciate what Aaron's achieved. But I really like this new twist of bit of fusion and stuff they're bringing into barbecue now, which appeals to me.
But those have been the pitmasters that I really love as well. There's a great guy, do you know Edward Lee from the States? He's this Korean guy that started fusing, and you know, he's been at it about 15, 20 years now, fusing sort of his Korean roots, but in a really traditional Southern way.
Yep.
And just the flavour profiles he's getting. And that, you know, as you're coming from the UK, you know, kind of an island of mongrels, really, and we just absorb cultures and ideas from everywhere. And that's certainly the way that we like to barbecue as well.
I think that third wave barbecue, that's kind of what's happening in the UK now, because we are a country of global flavours, you know, everything from Indian, Chinese, Filipino, whatever. And it's those global flavours that really influence what we cook. So we see that a lot in the UK. So yes, there's techniques and smokers and barbecues and grills and wood and charcoal, but actually flavour profile wise, I love where you're going with that third wave.
Yeah. Well, let's call Aaron the brisket goat, because I still don't think anyone's topped him. And we'll move on to the next one, Miss Tootsie.
Oh, yeah.
Has to. I mean, how can we come on a barbecue podcast like this and not give props, or actually say happy 90th birthday to Miss Tootsie? And she's been womaning those pits now for how many decades? And I think she does a fantastic job there at Snow's. And I think that she's the face of that business, really. You know, she's the face of the brand, the face of that barbecue. And we were talking earlier about, you know, being a pit master or a pit mistress, and what does it mean to be that? It's someone who works the pits every single day, and she's the woman that's been working it for decades. So happy birthday, Miss Tootsie.
Well, I have spent a bit of time there, and she does walk the talk. She's literally shoveling coals. She's very, very hands-on. Her and Clay work really well together. And they produce fantastic barbecue. And for her to be still out there working so hard is a credit to her. Hey?
And I love what a character she is as well. You know, she's as much of a tourist attraction as the barbecue is. You know, she'll always stop for photos and give you a few minutes of time. And, you know, I think she'll do this forever and still go to church on Sunday, apparently. Bakes cookies for church on Sunday. There you go. She can't get enough.
What an icon in our industry. And this is a photo taken on a birthday, I think.
Oh, amazing.
Lovely.
Look at that.
And look how many women that she's surrounded by as well. You know, that's absolutely fantastic. Because when we did our road trip around the States, the vast majority, I'd say 99% of the pit masters that we met were men, and generations of men as well, from grandfathers into sons and grandsons. But to be surrounded by all of these wonderful women, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. It is very old school.
Yeah,
old school barbecue.
We found the barbecue quite old school to eat, but I mean, it's delicious. But it tasted like, you know, this pork recipe has been the same for like 80 years. You know, it had that vibe to it. So, and I think there's always that little reverence that you have, you know, for these really old school places as well. You know, the OGs where it started.
100%. So let's move on to the last one, and it's Melissa Cookson.
Another fantastic woman.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Melissa's been a huge influence for us, you know. I mean, obviously, she's got a couple of great cookbooks. Was she the first woman to compete in Memphis in May?
She was the first person ever invited to compete, and then she beat the boys at their own game.
I mean, yeah. And then, you know, what's the name of the book? It's
Boys in the Smoking Room.
Smoking in the boys' room, which I love. And, you know, she's gone on to be a bit of a barbecue personality. You know, I know she's been one of the judges on Barbecue Showdown and things like that, and she really does know her stuff. I think her, you know, tastes do lean towards the sort of traditional. I think she has very sort of set values on how she wants to produce barbecue, but she's just such a pioneer and just such an inspiration, and just completely, you know, has blown my mind with how forward thinking she's been as a woman in barbecue, and unrelenting. You know, she's an absolute powerhouse.
And also a massive congratulations to her for being inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame.
And I want to say, I could be wrong, but she has 7 world championships. And
something like that.
That could be more than anybody.
The most winningest woman in barbecue.
Do you have that? Do you say that word in Australia?
Winningest?
I think who did it? Myron Mixon did it, right?
Yeah.
And so she's put her little twist on it, I think, the winningest woman. But I think, and I could be wrong, but I think she's got more world championships than anybody.
Wow. Well, that's even more reason to love her.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next thing. Now, I've asked you, before you came on the podcast, to pick the best, or your top 5 fire-based restaurants.
Yeah.
So they're not just barbecue, but they're cooking over fire. And I think that's kind of like important, because fire and smoke is what has got us to this point, right? Yes. How do we get so crazy about barbecue? Well, it's those 2 elements, fire and smoke. So in that essence, I've asked you to pick the top 5 fire-based restaurants. And we're going to start with Brat Restaurant. Can you tell me a bit about this one?
Well, we really wanted to shine a light on one of the most exciting, dynamic, now Michelin-starred fire cooking restaurants. And this restaurant, Brat, is based in London. And the head chef is Thomas Parry, who is a Welsh chef. So obviously, I'm from Belfast originally. Sam is Welsh, and we're from the UK, but we really wanted to shine a light on Welsh chefs doing great things with fire. So Thomas Parry is definitely one of those. You can see his Basque cheesecake there. That's delicious.
Looks gorgeous, doesn't it?
So he specialises in fire cooking, heavily influenced by Spain, northern Spain, sort of San Sebastian area. And we hosted him doing a demo at a food festival a couple of years ago, where he roasted over the fire a whole turbot.
Yeah.
Now, if you think slow and low brisket is difficult, to roast an enormous turbot on an open fire, and honestly, it was one of the most delicious things I've eaten in the last few years.
It was just completely gelatinous, you know, all that lovely fats in that turbot. I mean, this guy really knows fire, and he really knows food, and he puts them both together to massive critical acclaim. You know, everybody goes crazy for this restaurant, and it's easier to see why. He really, really does champion incredible produce as well.
Yeah, and while I was researching him, he got his Michelin star just 6 months after opening. That's wild.
Isn't that crazy? That's how good it is. That's the standard he's been cooking at for several years now. Yeah, I mean, he's an absolute marvel.
Okay, next.
La Cocina de Humo. So this is in Oaxaca. So Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned that we went on a little 2-month jaunt around Mexico.
Oh, it's definitely work.
Oh yeah, work. 2-month work trip around Mexico, and this place just blew us away. You know, there is a lot of fire cooking in Mexico, but there's a difference between fire cooking and fire being a necessity to cook over. You know, it's a heat source. But in Cocina de Humo, they try and honor really old Oaxacan traditions by creating this fire kitchen. You know, they've got great big camals and all of these beautiful earthenware bowls, and that's the sort of de olla bit of it, you know, whenever you see that word in Mexico. And there's like this incredible alkaline property and health benefits for cooking in these earthenware pots and on these comals. All the fire food was absolutely delicious. And again, using these indigenous Oaxacan ingredients. Lots of all-female teams, again, doing this. You know, lots of these incredible mamas just cooking away. And we just really loved the food. It was just beautiful, just simple, beautiful, letting the ingredients speak for themselves.
So this is their main restaurant that you can go to. But the night that we went there, it was coming up to New Year's Eve, I think. So we had a bespoke tasting menu. So it was like a 9-course tasting menu. I think that's what we're looking at now. Where all of the dishes had an element of fire cooking. Oh, there you are.
And you got to help cook.
Yeah. Well, you know, I will not be stopped. I'm coming for you. So we're making a hot chocolate there. And then in that other bowl, she's got... what they call pepitas, which are like toasted pumpkin seeds, which they turn into like it tastes like peanut butter. And then they mix that with the hot chocolate. Yeah, that's her just grinding them down. And obviously, I couldn't wait to have a go, to be honest with you. It was really cool. I like all of these massive volcanic rocks they've got as like their molcajetes. Was just incredible. She made that look easy, by the way. It's a lot harder than twizzling a stick is a lot harder than it looks.
Okay, next one.
Oh, almu tilcajete.
Yeah.
So we're in Mexico again?
Again.
You know what? It's all about Mexico, isn't it? Well, it's just, we've come back from Mexico, very inspired by the produce, the people, the place. This restaurant in particular is set on the grounds of a corn farm, because when we think about sweet corn in the UK, I mean, there's 387 varieties of corn in the world, and in the UK we eat one, the yellow one, the sweet corn. But this restaurant, Almu, is set within this conservation area, which is preserving and resurrecting heritage corn. And their strapline is Sin Mais No Hay Pais, which in Spanish, that's Mexican Spanish. In English, it means without corn, there is no country. Because so much of what Mexicans eat comes from corn. So they're very passionate about resurrecting these heritage corns. You know, you look at this wonderful colours, the purples, the reds, and then using that in the cooking. So then we had a little cooking lesson here in Almu. And honestly, the whole kitchen there is set up to be cooking on fire in just ways that we would have never thought about or have never seen before. Because when we think barbecue, we always think about cooking things on the barbecue or on the grill or on the smoker. Whereas, as you can see here, they're using fire to cook in a whole range of different ways. So fire is the only fuel source in this area.
It was a huge amount of outdoor kitchen envy on this place. I mean, it was just, you name the style. You want to grill, you want to smoke, you want a flat plate. They just had it all, you know. And they just also what I loved, they kept an eye on each other's fires. So they walk past, they look at what they're cooking. Somebody might walk past and put like a little branch of a tree on and just keep it all going. And it was all about the fresh food. And it was just incredible. But these, again, really old recipes that they're resurrecting, especially with this heritage grain maize that they've got, to try and put them back into the spotlight. You know, it's less about, you know, the al pastor tacos, and it's more about like this almost pozole soup that they've made with this ancient grain. And it was just so beautiful to see.
And for me, a big part of the lesson was the nixtamalization of the corn, you know, where they take it off the husks and then they soak it in essentially lye, which interestingly is also the stuff that you would dissolve a dead body with.
Okay.
Yeah,
so they soak
if you're into that kind of thing.
But you might even see it pop up as sort of this white chalky substance that breaks down the proteins in in the sweet corn. That's it in the bucket there.
I think that's that's it in the bucket.
There we go. That's the lithe. So the process that it goes through is that nixtamalization, which is really important because it tenderizes the corn, which then means that you can turn it into a flour, and then all of a sudden you've got all of the iconic Mexican dishes, whether it's tacos, flautas, empanadas, and that's the basis for most Mexican dishes. So hence the no mais, no hay país, no corn, no country.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, I didn't see any white flour tortillas over there while I was there.
Hey, listen, that's all we can get in our supermarkets as well. We're not blessed with the corn tortillas in the UK.
I thought you were going to say I didn't see any white powder floating about whenever I was out there.
That was a big bucket of it. It's called lye.
Okay, let's move on to the next one.
I have to mention, we could not come on this podcast without mentioning Asador 44, which is a restaurant that's based in the capital city of Cardiff, of which the chef patron owner is Owen Morgan, who is a fantastic fire chef. Now, they've got a range of different restaurants across South Wales and in Bristol, mostly specialising in Spanish tapas and drinks. But they opened this restaurant, and it's a real celebration of all things Spanish produce, and everything's cooked over fire. He's an absolutely amazing chef, and him and his brother and sister that own the business, they were actually mentors to us whenever we first opened our restaurant. And honestly, what they've taught us in terms of being restaurateurs, I'm not sure our business would have been a success without them. But that aside, I think he is one of the best chefs in Wales, and I just really want to sing his praises. They specialise in, for example, this Galician beef that they've got here. Whole fish, you go into their restaurant and all the meat is hanging up dry aging in the cabinets. But the other thing about Owen is that he's actually a sherry master. And he has been instrumental in changing our views in the UK with regards to sherry, not just something, sweet and caramelly that you drink at Christmas. He's the person that educated us that, sherry can go everything from almost like saline right the way through to sweet. And they do a fantastic job at Asador 44.
That steak photo there must be one of the most appetizing photos I've ever seen.
Yeah, that'll be one of the... He uses a lot of ex-dairy as well, so it'll be Galician meat or even ex-dairy meat, but doesn't it look just incredible? There's a great...
yellow fat.
Maillard reaction that he's got on there as well, and I love to see the bone sort of served as well. You just want to nibble on that too.
And cooked to absolute perfection.
That's Owen. If you meet Owen, he is an absolute self-confessed nerd.
Yeah,
food geek, wine geek, drinks geek. I mean, this guy will deep dive into products like no other. They do chef's trips 2, 3, 4 times a year where they take all of the chefs over to all of these different regions of Spain. And if you read their cookbook, it's less about the produce and the recipes and more about this culinary journey around Spain. He's an absolute expert, and I'm delighted to be talking about him.
Awesome. Okay. Last but not least, what have we got here?
So this is Au Pied de Cochon, the pig's foot. So this is an incredible restaurant we went to just outside Montreal. So we were lucky enough to be maple syrup ambassadors and to talk about and instill the virtues of beautiful maple syrup. And this was part of a trip where they took us out to see how it was produced, and we met lots of patisseries, viennoiseries, chefs that are all using maple syrup. But this was like almost our penultimate day there, and we went out to what's called a sugar shack, and sugar shacks are these little sort of pop-up restaurants, if you like, that happen during the maple harvesting season. And the idea is, I think the idea was that they would serve the workers and people working on these maple syrup farms, if you like, and it would all be sort of maple syrup based. But, now they've become a sort of mainstay for, Quebecans to go and eat beautiful food with the freshest maple syrup all during that season. But this place was next level. I mean,
look at the snow.
Look at the snow. Look at the smoker. Look at everything. This place is a standout because it was probably one of the most memorable meals I've ever had. There was more foie gras than probably in France. And on the right there, you can see that's foie gras sushi. Yeah. There's foie gras on the top. Inside that is all foie gras. It was about 8 courses of sweet maple syrup inspired dishes. And I have never more empathized with actually being a duck that has been stuffed like foie gras ever. And in fact, like, we were all like, I mean, you had to wear stretchy pants coming out of there. He smokes a lot of stuff. Cures, pickles, brines. He has this incredible workforce of chefs that go in that are pretty much at the top of their game, you know, like quite close to sort of Michelin star level chefs that go and work. Isn't it like a year in advance? You have to book this a year in advance. So for the next season, you would book this year for next season's maple sort of harvesting season if you ever wanted a table. And I know our trip was the dates were all around this date. It was all around this reservation at the Au Pied de Cochon, because it was hen's teeth, and there was about 15 of us. So the fact that they fitted 15 of us into this restaurant, but like, yeah, I mean, it was just gluttony off a scale. I mean, pretty gross, really, but it was delicious. It was incredible, and the gastronomy was off the scale.
Well, you've done pretty well, I think. You've picked a great top 5, and I'm pretty envious of these experiences that you've had in these places that you've dined at. So awesome work on picking that top 5. And moving on from that, we're going to talk a little bit about travel and events and experiences. And in terms of travel, you've obviously done a lot, but most recently, a really important trip for you was Mexico. I did follow along your journey. I thought it was super cool. So just talk me through, like, what was the experience like? 2 months is a long time to spend when you're focused on food and food experiences in the country. I mean, I think I spent 10 days there. So 2 months, fantastic.
We could have spent 2 years there, and and still not even scratched the surface of this absolutely huge country with real depth and breadth of produce and people and dishes. We started off in Mexico City, and then we went to Puebla. So Puebla is the home of the mole poblano. So we learned all about the mole poblano, the sort of sweet
and the mole negro
and the mole negro.
Yeah.
From there, then we went to Oaxaca, which is just a whole other cultural experience itself. The Oaxacans are so like fiercely proud of their ancestry, their dishes. You know, like the Oaxacans, actually, the Zapotecans predated the Mayans. You know, that's how ancient that culture and that society is.
I think they were also one of the only regions not to be sort of overthrown by the conquistadores. So they wear that like a badge of honor. You know, the fact that they're these absolute, stood their ground and weren't overthrown by sort of Catholicism.
And then from Oaxaca, then we went to San Cristobal de las Casas, which takes you up into the mountains, which sits perfectly on the ultimate latitude and longitude. That means that they can grow absolutely anything that they want there. You know, from potatoes to raspberries, all in the one place. And then we slowly made our way up to, I think, what emerged next to Oaxaca as our other favourite region, which is that whole Yucatan province. You know, if anybody believes in the dinosaurs, that's apparently, if there is a Big Bang theory, that bang happened and the meteorite hit the Yucatan Peninsula. And so it's very deserty, it's very dry. And we were in Mérida, which is a lovely cosmopolitan town. It's the safest city in Mexico because it's where all the wives of the cartels live and the chief
Allegedly.
But from Mérida, it was wonderful to explore that whole Yucatan Peninsula. You know, the whole around the sea. You've just got some of the most amazing seafood inland. Then you've got some of the most amazing meat, vegetables, produce. So, I mean, if anybody's thinking about going to Mexico, that is definitely somewhere I'd recommend. Because usually whenever people go to the Yucatan Peninsula, they go to Cancun or Tulum. Yeah. Sack all of that off and head west more towards Mérida, and I promise you will not be disappointed.
I had a preconception of what I thought Mexican food was before I went, and I think I quickly realised that what was in my head was quite Tex-Mexy, but what I loved was seeing the origins of how it's developed into, that sort of international cuisine. Cheeses are incredible, so it's a lot of fresh cheeses. So they've got the Oaxacan called quesilla, which is like cheese strings, like the dairy cheese strings, but tastes a lot fresher. And then they've got one called cojita, which is like a fine feta And then the only real aged one that they do is their version of a manchego, which, you know, again, you can see that sort of Spanish influence. Otherwise, it's just fresh cheeses that they eat with it. You know, there's not that cheddar cheese. There's not really that sort of mozzarella vibe to a lot of the dishes. And the sauces were just incredible. So we could talk about this all day.
No, we could. And I'm on screen at the minute. You can see this is a shot from the market where obviously you go into a Mexican market and there are hundreds and hundreds of varieties of chili. And everyone said to us when we were going to Mexico, oh, the food's going to be really spicy. Honestly, I didn't feel like anything that I ate was overly spicy, because I think it kind of goes Britain, Mexico, Indian, Thai food. Thai food is the spiciest thing I've ever eaten in my life.
How did you find it, Jay? Did you find the food spicy or not?
I loved it. And no, I didn't find it too spicy.
No.
But flavourful.
The depths of flavours were absolutely fantastic. The freshness shines through. Did you go to Tabasco?
No, we didn't get
On
it.
the
Good,
bus.
because my tour guide, because I said, I want to go to Tabasco, and they said, don't go, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And
There's
they
no
don't
big
even
chilies.
make Tabasco there.
They don't make Tabasco there. They don't grow chilies there.
How disappointing.
Well, and also, you know, there's no chihuahuas in Chihuahua.
I know. I wanted to go to Chihuahua for the Chihuahuas. But I have to say, the highlight was I was just getting a bit forlorn that I hadn't seen any Chihuahuas in Mexico. And I literally said that to Shauna, what's going on? We'd only been there 24 hours. And I said to Shauna, what's going on? Where are all these Chihuahuas? Around the corner came this fabulous gay guy in full regalia with 9 Chihuahuas.
Yeah.
5
walking
in one
them, was he?
hand. All walking. Oh, I just loved it.
And Mexico City, did you make it there?
What a fun.
Wow.
What a city.
Holy
What an international, vibrant capital. Like, if anybody has any preconceptions that Mexico City is not first world,
It was safe, it was clean,
and
the
beautiful.
food's phenomenal. Yeah.
I mean, we've lived in Sydney, we've lived in London, but Mexico City was like a whole other level of sophistication. You know, we actually took it upon ourselves to visit as many excellent cocktail bars as we could when we were there. So the top 50 cocktail bars in the world, number 1 is a Mexican, is the Handshake Speakeasy, but the top 3 in the top 10 are in Mexico City. So if you love eating and drinking, that is literally the place to go.
Yeah.
What we did find, and I don't know how you find it, Jay, is it is helpful if you speak some of the language, or, you know, at the very least to try and get around. I think speaking the language really deepens any cultural experience that you're going to have, because obviously we had to learn Australian to come here.
Especially to come on this podcast, because we are challenged with the English language.
I know, we got a Tassie over here. I need to get on Duolingo for what Tasmanian Australian is.
Okay, let's move on to the next segment. And you've done a lot of travel.
Yeah.
But I asked you to pick something that you've got on your bucket list.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect you to say this, but you said meat stock.
There he is. This is Luke Moonshine, stood in front of Frank the Tank, and we met him at Smoking Fire Festival last year. You've got him to blame or celebrate for the fact that we are here. He said, why don't you come to Meat Stock Australia? And we said, yes, because we've been following what you guys have been doing for years. This is like Australasia's biggest celebration of fire and meat, and it's just right up our street, because obviously we've travelled across America and we've seen American barbecue, but you Aussies have taken that and pushed it even further.
But supersized it as well, because you've got the room to supersize it as well. I think for me, it's the ethos of this festival. You know, I think it's a true celebration of smoke, fire, wood, meat, mayhem, bedlam, bands, and riding bulls, which I can't wait to see up close and personal. I'll just maybe from a distance. I'll rephrase that. But I just love what you do here, and we've been following for years, and I've always said, like, wouldn't it be great to get down there? And we could just never find the time.
Oh, that's a shoey.
And
we're looking at a shoey. They also have them in the northeast of England, in Sunderland and Newcastle.
Yeah, that's a Geordie thing.
Drinking out of a shoe. No, honestly, and I'm not just saying it because we're here on your podcast, Jay. Yes, we lived out here 20 years ago. So to come back, if you'd have told me 20 years ago that I'd be here now on this podcast, cooking at this festival, I wouldn't have believed you. It's fantastic that we're here.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure.
Is
to have
it
you
too late for me to get a mullet?
No.
So we're ready for
A
the
quick
mullet
haircut.
competition.
I mean, I think with some careful quafting on the sides here, I could get myself a mullet.
Well, the good news is there is a barber at the festival, and he could maybe help that out. And you know a few people that
Yeah.
might be able to get you up on stage.
Point me in the direction of the mullet maker.
I will never forgive you, Jay, if you let Shauna leave this country with a mullet. I'm just letting you know.
They've become somewhat trendy in Australia.
They've become trendy in the UK, and here's
Rugby
the thing.
players, it's quite trendy with. Our
Yes.
rugby players seem to have
So
a lot of
listen,
mullets.
Here's my naivety about the mullet as it's sort of come back across the pond from Australia to Britain, and it's associated with rugby. I genuinely thought that it was a rugby haircut because maybe they want to trim the sides back because when they're in the ruck or a scrum, it's better for the contact. And then somebody said, no, that's actually a choice. That's actually a hairstyle. They're choosing to look like that.
Well, it's funny how things go in circles because my son, who is a very young, handsome, attractive guy, how would I put this? Had a lot of attention from females after he grew a mullet and got a mustache.
Well, there we
No,
go.
really?
There you go.
Wow.
And 15 years ago, I don't think that was the case.
So hang
No.
on. So what
Well,
you're saying
that's
is if I
interesting.
get a mullet, I'm going to be attracted to a lot of, or attractive to a lot of young females. Sign me up.
Well, probably a lot
Sign
of
me up.
a lot of men in leather aprons and top knots as well. You'll be going to the right festival.
Okay, there's a few photos here we're flicking up from Meat Stock, and you're about to.
But also,
These are amazing.
I think what's great about Meat Stock is that it pulls chefs from all over the globe.
Yeah.
And that is what really excites us about food. You know,
Yeah.
so you've had chefs from Argentina, Brazil, Australia, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, America. That's what I love about Meat Stock, more so than a lot of other festivals that we go to. It's just this global influence that you've got, and people travelling from all over the globe to come here, including ourselves. And I think that's what makes it really exciting.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, you're about to experience it. Sydney's one of our biggest. The Saturday will be sold out and packed to the rafters. So it should be fun, and you're cooking at Fire Kitchen.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Have a guess what we're cooking.
Oh, I don't know. Have a guess.
Oh, should we tell you? Can we tell you?
Yeah,
I'll not tell
of
you.
course you can.
So,
Well, Sam's from Wales. Have a guess what she's cooking.
so basically, I wanted to do. No whales. No whales will be harmed in the making of our fire kitchen. No, so I wanted to make a sort of homage to. So the dish is called New Old South Wales. So I'd like to think the Welsh were sort of partly responsible for the reason why sheep farming is ubiquitous in Australia. On our flag, on our Welsh flag, it's a sort of white sky, green earth, and there's a red dragon on the front. So I've got Australian lamb. We're going to have some lamb cutlets, hopefully.
Yep.
And we're going to do some confit leeks. So leeks are clearly a Welsh thing. So we're going to burn those, and then we're going to confit them in loads of butter, oil and garlic. Then we're going to have some red dragon fiery pickles with loads of chilli and some pink peppercorns. And then just for the green, we're going to have a lovely, delicious sort of Parmesan parsley crumb on it as well. Oh. So it's going to look like the Welsh flag, which is a homage to all our Antipodean brothers and sisters.
Perfect. It sounds fantastic.
Sam doesn't leave the house without a leek.
Yeah.
See, I love to eat.
I've got one on me now. Can you guess where? No. Joking. Cut.
Well, I love to eat, but I'm not the best cook. So
Right.
Meat Stock is a little bit of an excuse for me to bring people over to cook.
But it must be great because for me it's sharing ideas as well. I know for sure that I'm going to learn something over that weekend, and I'm going to pick up a tip, pick up a technique, because I think, as cooks and chefs, like we're always looking to improve ourselves, always. So that's what I'm looking forward to, being in the fire kitchen with, a lot of legends as well, so I'm going to be nosying over
Ernest
at their
Cervantes
pits.
with you.
Ernest Cervantes, of course,
Bill
Adriana.
Dumas, bringing the sausages.
Yeah.
Luke,
Sausage
can't wait
sensei.
to cook with Luke. And like I said, a massive shout out to Fat Boys, because without them, we wouldn't be here. So thank you, Luke. And Laurie, his wife.
Yeah,
they
she's
came
lovely.
to the, absolutely brilliant. They came
Very
to the
nice
Smoking
people.
Fire Festival, and we just bonded straight away over our love of lamb, funny enough.
Yeah. Well, Luke's one of those people, and this is his son in the picture right here, but Luke's one of those people that just discovered barbecue like we all did and then just jump in head first, and the next thing you know, it's become his life.
I mean,
Yeah.
Luke does not do things by half if he just discovered barbecue.
And I don't know if he needs a Guinness World Record, but I believe that Frank the Tank might be one of the biggest smokers in the world.
It is definitely the largest reverse flow smoker in the world,
Yeah.
and there is a bigger smoker in the world in the USA, but it's laid up. It's not being used. So
Well, that doesn't
So it's
count
a
then.
working. So
Yeah.
Frank the Tank is an actual proper working.
he'll be
working-
cooking on it. You'll be cooking on it, and it's
I can't
functional
wait.
and works. The other one in America is on a semi-trailer, and it's quite large, but I think it's separate chambers.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen that one.
No,
Yeah.
but Luke's is Frank the Tank is one big continuous chamber. What that must be like to load in and load out, I've got no idea.
Yeah, it's a monster. Absolutely.
And I've seen them do it in flip flops.
The Aussie
What do
way.
you call them? You don't call them
Thongs.
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 That's a totally different
And in
thing.
New Zealand,
isn't it?
they call them.
Don't know.
So that in New Zealand, what are they called?
So I learnt this the hard way because I'm Australian, and because it's a festival, during bump in and bump out, people have to wear safety gear. You know, they
Yeah.
have to wear
Right,
proper
yeah.
shoes, and they have to wear safety vests.
That's health and safety gone mad.
in New Zealand, Australians call them thongs. So I would walk around and say, you can't wear thongs around here. Well, they call that a G-string, which
That's-
is probably what most of the
that's
world
what
does.
we
right?
call them,
it in
yeah.
Britain.
But in New Zealand, they call them jandals.
Jandals.
Jandals, there you go.
I've
never
got to
heard
find
that.
out the etymology of that
Oh,
word.
I've never heard
There's
that.
got to be like a jean sandal, like there's got to be something in there. I need to
Yeah.
find out why they're called jandals.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you know,
Which is
leave us
better
a
than
comment.
thongs.
That's
I'm
it.
sorry, Australia. It's better than bloody thongs,
Answers
honestly.
in the comments. But yeah, no, thongs means something totally different in the UK as well.
Yeah.
Well, we've mixed up a lot of words here in this country, I think. So let's get on to some talking points. This
Okay.
is a couple of subjects that we want to get through. And the first one that I wanted to bring up was Hangfire Kitchen.
Yep.
So in 2016, you opened your own restaurant, and literally from the moment you opened your doors, you were booked out.
Yep.
7
Yep.
years of booked out
Yep.
bookings.
Yep.
I just think it's the penultimate. If you're into barbecue, you're into food, opening your restaurant is the penultimate. And the hype that you guys got around the world at that time for doing what you were doing in the UK, it resonated right back here to Australia. And I just kind of feel like it's the ultimate achievement. And unfortunately, COVID kicked everyone's ass. But to say that you guys brought something from a different part of the world to the UK, and then not only that, but just did such a great job of it, is a real credit to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when we opened the restaurant, we took 1,300 bookings in the first 24 hours, and we were fully booked 6 months in advance until the day that we closed. It was a huge success project. Closing it was the most difficult decision that we've ever made. It was a painful, because I think a lot of times whenever people close restaurants, they close it because it's not working, it's not a success, or it's not making any money. We closed it on our own terms. And yes, COVID really was a kick in the nuts for everyone, but particularly for that restaurant, because when we asked our staff team after about almost a year on furlough of sort of sitting at home, to come back to the restaurant, 70% of our staff team said we're not coming back to hospitality. And it wasn't that they weren't coming back to the Hangfire restaurant, it was that they dropped out of hospitality altogether and went into other trades, other careers. Because I think around that COVID time, people had really started to evaluate their work-life balance. You know, do I want to work 45, 50, 60 hours a week, 12-hour days, split shifts, evenings and weekends, unsociable hours, not seeing my family? You know, I think a lot of people really had that questioning of whether hospitality was for them. I'm looking at these pictures now, and I'm trying not to get upset or tear up about it, because I want it to be remembered as a very positive project, and it was a massive achievement, but closing it was a very difficult decision.
I do feel like things haven't got a lot better for a lot of restaurants and a lot of people in that industry since that time.
Jay, the number of restaurateurs that come up to me saying, I wish I'd have closed my restaurant whenever you did. Because the thing is about closing a restaurant, if you are going bankrupt or going under, or you're not making any money and you just want to close the doors because you have to close the doors, that's one way to do it. To close a restaurant, to maintain your reputation with your staff, with the community in which you build that restaurant, with your suppliers, is a very costly business. Closing a restaurant on your own terms is very costly. Loyal staff are fantastic until you have to make them redundant. And we made sure that we paid our staff all of the redundancy payments, that no tax was owed, our suppliers were up to date, rent was up to date. And then if you actually look at what has happened since the closure of that restaurant, I think things have got worse for the hospitality industry in the UK. You know, I think everything that's happened in Ukraine and all of a sudden gas prices are out of control, electric prices are out of control, wages
Meat
are rising.
prices, everything.
Meat
Yeah.
prices.
I mean,
and also, in that time coming out of COVID, we have a friend of ours who has a Michelin star restaurant in London, and they were paying people £1,000 just to come for an interview so that they could keep the restaurant going.
Yeah.
And we decided that our reputation and the quality of our food was actually more important than anything, because we could have limped on producing mediocre food, slowly getting into debt. But actually, listen, we opened it at the right time, we closed it at the right time, and it's only now 4 years on that I can really celebrate it for the success that it was.
I want to push this into perspective, right? Because there's a lot of people into barbecue, and especially with the advent of social media, you get a lot of people that are into barbecue, but there's a big difference between running your own restaurant, right? There's a big difference between putting everything on the line, opening up a restaurant, doing things at scale, and then bringing people in who are more than ever ready to judge you.
Just to give you an example, it would take me, so Shauna sort of ran front of house, if you like, I run back of house. It would take me round about 18 months to 2 years to train a chef. You know, this is a very, able-bodied chef, to be able to cook a brisket. So that 18 months to 2 years to be able to tell the art and science and the instinct of when that brisket is ready, because every brisket is different. And if somebody left, well, I'm back to square one, on training them. I was super fortunate that the core of my chef team were there from when we opened to when we closed. But that's the scale of it. And it's really difficult to maintain consistency. It's difficult to maintain consistency with your suppliers. You'll get a supplier call up, and this incredible brisket that you've been having for the last 2 years, we don't have it anymore.
Won't have it for 2 weeks.
Yeah. And then what do I do then? I am, it's the admin involved. So I was also, the executive chef. So I would do something, what I called part-time in the kitchen. So I only did about 50 hours in the kitchen. And then there was another 40 hours, 45 hours of admin on top of that, just making sure that, we were on top of our game, always getting the best quality. You're constantly negotiating prices without screwing your suppliers, how do we always meet in the middle that, we get what we want and you get what you want? I mean, it's just, now I'm giving other people Aaron Franklin's advice that he gave to us at the beginning. If you do it right, you won't make any money. Yeah. And that's true. And, we have a running joke that chicken wings paid our mortgage.
It certainly wasn't brisket. It certainly wasn't
open up a chicken shop. That's what you want to do. Open up a chicken shop. Don't open up a slow and low.
But what you have to remember about this style of food, though, this style of food is very new to the UK whenever we opened up this restaurant. So we would recruit chefs who'd never cooked over fire.
No. So you had to start from ground zero.
Ground zero. Yeah. So, and also what's interesting about the restaurant was, based on what Aaron had told us about making money out of barbecue, was that we'd always been Hangfire Smokehouse whenever we were doing pop-ups and festivals and events. But when we opened the restaurant, we became the Hangfire Southern Kitchen. And the reason for that was because it also allowed us to spread our wings and celebrate everything that we love about the deep south of America. So as much as it was about barbecue, it was also about those really iconic dishes from the deep south. I don't think people in the UK and Wales had ever really had shrimp and grits, jambalaya, etouffee, gumbo, moonshine. All of these really southern.
Speaking my language.
Yeah.
But that was
that's soul food. Food that you have to pour your heart and soul into to make it taste fantastic. And that's the food that we really wanted to serve to this particular community on Barry Island as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Look, the entire experience, it's a credit to you. It honestly is.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
It's very easy to sort of critique people. It's very easy to bravado yourself when you're into barbecue and all the rest of it. And you see it online all the time where people go, I could do that better at home. But then to put yourself out there and to put yourself in front of a public is remarkable. So we'll move on from that to the Hang Fire Cookbook. Now, this is the gift that keeps on giving, is it not?
You're telling me. Well, actually, we've got a present. So what you're seeing here is the first iteration of the cookbook, and then the second generation of the cookbook, and we've brought you a present because here we go. This month we see this is the third version of the Hangfire Cookbook. It's the same cookbook, it's just got a different cover. But this is the 10-year anniversary edition of the Hangfire Cookbook. And we've brought it to you as a present. It is literally the gift that keeps on giving.
Back in hardcover, baby.
Yeah.
So
It keeps selling out, Jay. I don't know what to say.
I flicked through it quickly, and it's phenomenal that it stood the test of time because it looks like a brand new cookbook.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
The
Thank
photography is fresh as the day that it was.
Yeah.
And also we worked with this fantastic illustrator called Anita Mangum, who actually illustrated the book and even came up with her own fonts, you know, and it's all very personalised because the book's actually called The Hangfire Cookbook, Recipes and Adventures in American Barbecue, because what we wanted to do through this book was myth bust. Because when we travelled across America, there's a lot of guarding, a lot of secrets, a lot of mysticism around barbecue. And actually we wanted to go, do you know what? No, we're going to blow it wide open. We're going to show you what we do. We're going to teach you how to do it. And really, so the book is actually about our road trip from the California to the Carolinas and everything in between. The number of people that have contacted us over the last decade to say this was the entry point for them into barbecue.
Cool, isn't it?
This is
That's
what
cool.
got them started in barbecue, and that makes me very proud.
Well, I'm looking forward to having a flick through it, and I appreciate you bringing me a copy. It's awesome.
And also, 10 years ago when we wrote this book, there's very, very few books on the market written by two women about American barbecue. So not bad for a Welshie and an Irish girl.
Okay, let's move on to this. Is a new thing that you've got happening, or has it always happened?
No, it's new.
No, it's new,
All new. Yeah.
So tell us what's happening here.
So we've recently, it's been kind of 2 years in the making, created our own sort of outdoor kitchen out, at the back of our house in our little sleepy town in South Wales. And we created it with the view of sort of answering lots of requests for us to start barbecue classes and start teaching, pretty much what's in this book to people. And I've really loved it. We kind of do them in spring and in autumn because we generally away at festivals through the summer. And it's just been such a lovely, brilliant, rewarding thing to do.
Yeah. This is the outdoor kitchen here.
Yeah, and it's kind of reminding us of, being back in that one-to-one hospitality with the restaurant again, where, we're doing the cooking together. You're having these incredible sort of like interactions with people that are there to learn. And it's just so rewarding teaching people this barbecue
honestly,
as well.
I always describe it in the Venn diagram of it's really good fun. I don't have to leave the house and I get paid for it. Bam. In the middle. Barbecue Cookery School. But I really feel that it's only something that we can do now with 13 years of knowledge, because what started as a love of American barbecue over the last 13 years has just grown into a love of outdoor cooking with as many wonderful barbecues as we can. We're very focused on the fuel that we use in terms of the wood and charcoal and excellent produce.
And I think the thing that sort of sets our barbecue school apart, maybe, there's quite a few in the UK now, is, I like to give, sort of hands-on, quite chefy tips from running the restaurant, and then how you bring in sort of those efficiencies, into your barbecue cooking, which is really nice. So it's stuff that you would never ordinarily know about, had I not cooked 5,000 briskets, 7,000 metric tons of pork, and probably, I don't know, let's take a guess on ribs, 48,000 racks of ribs. So, and it's given those sort of practice wisdoms to people, which I really love to do, and giving them something that they can take home and practice.
There's something really special about when people kind of first discover barbecue or live fire cooking, and then they taste it, and you can almost see it drop in their head, the penny drop, so to speak, right? Which is what happened to us in our trips to America. Yeah. And they're like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be like. This is the difference.
Or that's how you do it. That's how you do it.
But I think what's been interesting for us, especially with Hang Fire, the amount of Americans we would have come to our restaurant, it'd always be a bit nerve-wracking.
Feeding Americans.
Not to sort of, it would be
because they know about the food.
Of course, they've eaten in all these incredible barbecue joints. The highest compliment that they could give us would be like, that's as good, if not better, than what we've had in the States. And what made ours better was like, we could not fail. This has to be every single service, every single burnt end, every piece of pulled pork, rib, chicken has to be at the top of his game that I can make it. You know, because you never want to be a cheap imitation. Like, I think I always used to say that we were kind of like a homage to American barbecue. We're never going to be authentic. You know, we have different woods, different meat, different terroir. But I always wanted our restaurant to be like a love letter to American barbecue, you know, sort of written fondly by us.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I think you have achieved that. Next up, BBC Radio.
Yep.
Oh, should I put the book down? I feel like I've advertised it now. Has everybody written it down at home?
That can go.
What's it called again?
It's called the Hangfire Cookbook, Recipes and Adventures in American Barbecue.
Out soon.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice.
it's out
Go
now.
buy it. Buy it now. Buy it now. Buy it now, please. In fact, you know what? Don't buy it because I don't think I can do the 4th generation of this one.
No, it's a whole nother cover to
We
come up
really
with.
need to pull our finger out and start writing another one. So we'll put it neatly back on Simon's shelf for him to
And
have
that's
a
where it can
little...
live for a while, I
little
think.
Sam-
He can have
Yeah.
a little look at it whenever he comes back. But the other thing that you really need to know about why we quit our big careers in London to go on a road trip across the southern states, to understand the secrets of American barbecue, but really being truthful about it, it was to meet Dolly Parton.
Hey, tell me about this, because this is wild to me.
Yeah, this is absolutely wild. So we ended up
love
living
her.
with Dolly Parton's drummer, Steve Turner, if you're watching, Steve, and Miss Elizabeth. We've been to the recording studio, we've fed her backstage, we've taken the whole crew, brisket, moonshine, and we just absolutely love her music and we love who she is as a person. We've talked about fierce women. She's the pioneer of fierce women. But also at the time, so I play guitar and sing. Sam plays banjo. In fact, Sam is the best female harmonica player I've ever met. I've only ever met one. But I think she's a pretty good harmonica player. So we kind of busked our way to the Deep South through our love of Dolly Parton. And that was actually a big part of the trip. So Dolly Parton has been the unofficial patron saint of the Hangfire business for the last 13 years. So this year we're absolutely delighted to say that we're going to be making a documentary for the BBC, for the radio, which is going to be called From Tenby to Tennessee. Because Dolly Parton has traced her roots, her ancestry, back to this tiny little town in Wales, which is just up the road from where we
Wow,
live.
what a coincidence.
Come on.
By the way,
Did you find this out after you?
Yeah, Dolly Parton only found this out last year.
By the way, Simon knows Tenby. You know
Yes.
Tenby, don't you, Simon? He's nodding away there.
Yeah.
So Simon knows all about Tenby.
Yeah, Simon almost moved to Tenby, and then he realised that there wasn't enough surf action.
And Dolly Parton had left.
And she'd left, yeah. So, yeah.
So Dolly Parton, if you trace her family back, her family were called Owens, Owens. You know, like Owensborough, which is a very Welsh name, traditionally Welsh name. So who knew that Dolly Parton actually, her family
So
came
we'll be
from
chatting
Wales?
to Dolly later in the year.
And you've met her?
We've been, yes, well, we have met her, but the thing is, whenever you meet Dolly, you don't really get to meet her. It's not like whenever
It's a fleeting.
It's not
Okay.
what I like when I met you, Jay, and I ran up and jumped all over you and hugged you. You know, but we've been in the recording studio and she's been there. We've seen her. We've met the whole gang, met the whole band. You know, whenever
And
they
cooked for her.
That's the main thing.
Tiny little vac packs of barbecue
That's the main
that
thing.
go in a little fridge
Because
in her
just-
in her tour bus.
Just when you thought you couldn't love Dolly Parton anymore, and you find out that her favourite thing to eat is brisket. She's the woman for me.
Okay. I've got some quick fire questions
Not
for you.
Hangfire questions.
No, these
are
quick fire. I should have called them hang fire questions.
Yeah.
How did I miss that as a segue? Okay, we're getting towards the end of the show, and it's been fantastic so far, but I thought I'd ask you some real quick fire questions just to kind of wrap us up. And some controversial ones too, a little bit.
okay. Lovely.
Okay, so the first one is trends in barbecue that need to die.
Yeah.
If it hasn't died already, putting any kind of aluminium can up a chicken's ass has to stop. Stop with the beer can chicken,
Beer can chicken
please
can
stop.
get in the bin.
No, stop. Buy a proper thing that the chicken can sit on. I even did one on a pineapple, worked out really well. You can't say peg a chicken, can you?
You can say it.
I pegged the chicken on a pineapple.
Put a chicken on a pineapple.
It was sat on a throne, a pineapple throne. But please stop aluminium cans. Please stop putting that. They don't steam from the inside out. It's a complete myth.
And it doesn't impart any flavour.
You won't
That's
get
nonsense.
You won't get that liquid boiling enough for that ginger beer
No, it
or
doesn't
whatever
boil.
the hell
That's
that you're
right.
doing to steam it from inside out. There are much better things out there. So if that hasn't died already, that's got to die.
Beer can chicken.
Anything else?
Let's see.
I mean, I want.
Can I do the running the knife along a crunchy thing? Can I do that fucking
Yes,
thing? Like, that
definitely
is
that.
just like, I can see it's crispy and crunchy. I can tell by looking at it.
Yeah.
You doing that is not going to make me want to do that recipe anymore.
And also, it's bad for your knife. Oh, and on that knife thing, you know, whenever you see people in Instagram influencers where they cook something and then they take their knife and they down into the chopping board, I'm thinking, well, you've just ruined that knife.
Oh, God, pray for the chopping board and the knife on that one.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, I would. We could be here all day.
Enough of the pegging of chickens.
On pineapples.
Speaking of pineapples, what's that universally the symbol for?
It's supposed to
Isn't
be.
it swingers?
Correct, right?
Yeah.
And so, very late at night in Brazil, at maybe 4 p.m., I was picking tattoos off a wall and I saw a pineapple grenade and just got it. I didn't think about it. So now I've got a bloody pineapple on my hand.
Oh, no.
Anyway,
I mean, just...
And now I'm going to try and get a hot chook put on top of it. one for you,
I'll be able to. I know a guy that can fix that tattoo for you.
Simon.
Okay, your dream barbecue team. If you had to create your own barbecue team, who'd be on your team?
I'm going to go. There may be 5 of us.
Go for it.
So, Shauna, obviously.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, only because they're absolute OGs and alphas with barbecue. So we have to have Melissa Cookston, Leanne Whippen, and then another Texas barbecue chef that came runner-up in Barbecue Showdown, Sloan Rinaldi.
Okay.
What a pit mistress. Just that old G Texas barbecue. I think between and obviously me. Between the
so
5
you've
of
gone
us.
for an all-female team.
All
That's
female,
all right.
all
That's
female,
good. No, I
absolute.
think that's good.
American Royal, KCBS, Jack Daniels.
Memphis in May.
We'll take them all.
Barbecue Hall
Take
of
them all
Fame.
I
down.
think you'd be in with a shot too.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is, what are some of the challenges that you've had being females in barbecue? Like, it's obviously a very male-dominated industry. Or have you had any?
We've definitely had our
Yeah.
fair share of tattooed, top-knotted and leather apron men trying to tell us what to do. I've definitely had my fair share of lighting barbecues at events and men coming over and telling me how they wouldn't have done it like that. But I have to say, on the whole, over the last 13 years, even though we do operate in a very male-dominated industry, we've been on a mission to try and encourage more and more and more women to get involved in this. And as a result of that, we've developed more and more and more male allies. I think we get a lot of respect, actually, from a lot of male chefs who appreciate all of the hard work that goes into it, all of the physicality that goes into it. I don't know. What you're more the chef.
Well, I think what used to happen, for example, when we had our TV show, and at the end of the TV show, we'd create something just crazy and ostentatious to cook on. So whether it was like a sort of a 30-meter grill or a massive cinder block pit or, you know, a 15-meter pit dug in the sand filled with seafood. What used to happen, if there were any, and I would be there working the pit, you know, digging it all out and lighting charcoal, if there were any men at all stood in the vicinity.
Of which there usually were, because you'll have cameramen,
Well, you got
sound
camera guy,
men.
yeah, you just got guys like hanging around, singers. The men would always, so wouldn't come up to me, who's clearly working the pit, or Shauna's clearly doing the work. They would never approach us and say, oh, what you got going on there? I could hear them like out of earshot saying like, oh, so what are the girls doing for you there? And like the sound guy would be like,
Ask them.
make sure the girls don't hear you say that. You could be next on the menu, dude. But you could hear them, like they would just always, I think it was just unbelievable to them that women would be doing this or have this idea or have even, you know, the gumption to be able to create something like this. I think it was just so beyond their thought process. And we are talking men of a certain age, God bless you, men of a certain age. But men of a certain age wouldn't fathom that women had come up with this or were doing this.
Younger men, and I include you in that, Jay, and Simon, obviously.
Don't know if I have any more.
Younger men, listen, a lot of men have grown up with fantastic female role models, have sisters. I mean, you've got daughters, you know. So I think like things are definitely changing. And one of the things I'm really proud of is from the moment we opened our restaurant, if you look at the statistics and you look at the demographics, it was always 50% men, 50% women would always be our customers. You look at our barbecue cookery classes now, and it's 50% men, 50% women. So I think hopefully what we've done is maybe for even men that feel intimidated by other men on the barbecue, we've kind of created a safe space for you to come and learn and respect what we do, actually, regardless of our gender.
Yeah. And I just think barbecue is an everybody thing.
Yes.
It doesn't matter where you come from.
You were going to say it's an every man thing, weren't you?
No, it's an everybody thing.
It's an everybody
100%.
thing.
And I don't know. I mean, historically speaking, cooking was a very female-oriented thing in history.
Yeah.
And somehow when barbecue come along, men went, okay, this is ours. Yeah. And it's not like that at all.
So there's a female chef in the UK, Asma Khan, who always talks about 90% of all meals cooked in the UK are cooked by women.
Wow.
So why are women not cooking outdoors more?
Yeah.
And we talk to these women all the time. I think there's a perception that it's messy, that it takes too long, and maybe they're juggling lots of other things
also
in
complicated,
the home. It's
technical.
It's complicated. It's dirty, messy. There's a big clean down, associated with it. But what we've always tried to encourage women to think about, listen, if you have a barbecue with a lid, anything that you can cook indoors, you can cook outdoors. And they just need to transfer not so much the knowledge, but the confidence to start cooking outdoors.
Yeah.
I think as part of your third wave barbecue, I'm just really hoping that more and more and more women start cooking outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few women come on the course that are great chefs in the kitchen, great cooks in the kitchen. They love it, but just don't have the confidence. And then one session with us, they're just like, it's so easy.
It is.
I always thought it was
easy once you've been shown by somebody who has learnt the hard
also,
way.
Yeah, of course.
And by the same token, we've had some men that have come on our barbecue cookery classes, and I've been cooking on a Weber kettle for 30 years, and then we quite quickly realise that they've got all the gear and no idea.
Yeah.
And you say to them, okay, you might be cooking burgers and sausages on the grill, but can you chop that onion for me? And they're nearly chopping their fingers off.
But it's when they start emptying an entire bag of charcoal into a kettle barbecue. I just want to stop you there. Let's just take a step back from that.
No, listen, we're really lucky. We've been blessed with a very diverse, and not just male and female, a very diverse tribe that have followed Hang Fire over the last 13 years, and I feel really proud of that.
Yeah. Well, I think, when it comes to females in barbecue, Tootsie, Diva Q, just off the top of my head, Jess Pryles, yourselves.
Oh, Jess.
Jess is incredible. Sarah Glover, you're right, Diva Q. I mean, there are just so many. I mean, some that we've touched on today. I think Diva Q might be mad at me if I didn't have her in my barbecue team. Diva, if you're watching, you'd be on the team. But I think you're right. I mean, there are just so many badass alpha women making incredible barbecue that I think it, for me, almost the gender almost doesn't matter.
Judge
They're
the food.
so good at what they
100%.
do.
Judge the food, not the person that's made it.
I agree. And to cap that off, I just think you've been inspirational. So, and you're part of that sort of elite group of females in barbecue, and it's a pleasure to have you.
They make me cry, Jay.
Now,
very sweet.
though, as part of the tradition of this podcast, is you've got to cook something and I get to eat.
That's the easy bit. That's the easy bit.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously intimidating cooking for incredible pit boss like yourself, Jay. But we've knocked a little something up.
Well, I'm a good promoter of barbecue events, but maybe not so much a pitmaster. But I do love to eat.
Hey, I've seen your videos. I've seen your videos, Jay. You're pretty good.
Listen, we're all eaters. We love to eat.
And what are we cooking?
Well, we've designed something that we think might bridge the gap between something that is quintessentially British, and we know that you Aussies love a pie. So we've made a Scotch Egg Pie.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so
on a barbecue.
A beautiful barbecue Scotch egg, so some sausage meat. I've chopped up a little bit of chorizo in there, so you can use kind of whatever you want. Black pudding I usually like in mine, but I couldn't find any here in our local shops.
No, it's not big in Australia.
Wrap it in streaky bacon.
You start with an egg.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Start with the egg, because actually boiling an egg is more difficult than you think.
Well, actually, I've got to tell you, Jay, I was boiling, and I fully intended for you to have a soft boiled egg, Scotch egg, when you cut into this. But 2 wallabies We're outside our
No,
little
Simon told
Airbnb.
me they're actually
Kangaroos.
young kangaroos.
Young
Yeah.
ones.
So we saw some kangaroos in the back garden.
So I was watching them, and I could just, and then I turned around, and it'd probably been about half an hour, and these eggs might be a bit hard boiled.
No, that's all right.
Blame the kangaroos. Blame the kangaroos. So yeah, I just smoked them. You got a beautiful Prima grill out there, so cooked them indirect, around about half an hour. Give them a little glaze with some barbecue sauce there. You've got that. Can I give a shout out to? Is it Fancy Hanks? Is that the name? Absolutely delicious.
Really good barbecue sauce.
Just some shop bought puff pastry. Nestle it in a little blanket there. I just found a bowl that was knocking around the under-seasoned kitchen, so used that as a mould. Cut out the pastry, folded it over with a little egg wash, and then finally it's going to go into the barbecue, just on a greased sheet pan there. That's the final thing. A few fancy black sesame seeds on the top, and that's it.
Well, I think it looks absolutely smashing, and we have some in the studio.
Ta, 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 ta.
Little
Size
cameo.
gonna bring
Wow,
it in.
look at this glamorous assistant.
Look at that. Oh, look at this knife. This knife is pretty...
Call that a knife?
So that's
Look
an
at that.
Australian handmade knife by Cutthroat Knives. They're down in Melbourne.
Wow.
Gosh, that is
And
stunning.
it's a pretty spectacular piece.
Just even the design on the wooden box is really beautiful.
He's a very talented guy.
Oh, lovely.
Now, I know that you said the egg won't run, but I'm still going to bring out the stunt cam here.
Right, okay, yeah.
Okay.
So, let's cut up a... which one do you want me to go for? This one?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Cut this one in half. Oh,
See that cross section? Oh, yeah, that's right. Scrape the top.
okay, so here's our cross section. Yeah, sorry, you've got a fairly well... I mean, usually I would recommend sort of like 3 to 4 minutes on the egg, but if a kangaroo shows up in your garden and it goes 15 to 20, it's still fine, it'll taste good.
Okay.
That's the
Well, I love
hazards
the
of
look
cooking
it.
in Australia, right? Yeah, you like the look? Shall I make it a little smaller?
A little slice would
Are
be
you gonna-
fantastic because I'm
Wonderful.
starving.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Well, this is a good filler-upper. Yeah, so
Okay.
barbecue Scotch
There
egg
you go, sir.
encased in
Have a look.
pastry.
And I think it's the barbecue sauce is great, the bacon's great. So it's almost like a brekkie in a bun, you know. So you've got everything that you would have on a breakfast wrapped in pastry.
And you wrapped it in prosciutto, was that right?
No, it was just some
bacon.
streaky bacon. Yeah,
Perfect,
but I
okay.
put a little chorizo in with the
Now,
the
you have to
sausage mix.
pretend to like it, Jay, even if you don't like it, okay?
What's not to like? It's breakfast wrapped in
Fat and
pastry.
salt.
I will admit, though, I've never wrapped them in pastry before, but we've done nothing but eat loads of your delicious meat pie since we've been in Australia. So this is my homage to thank you to all the pie makers that have fed us over the last few days.
Well, this is absolutely smashing. Love it.
Thank you very much.
I'm known to make a mess of myself.
I deliberately got flaky
Pastry.
pastry for that reason.
Okay, that's absolutely smashing. It's so tasty. The bacon around the outside is a hit, and the addition of pastry even better.
I know. How'd you make a Scotch egg better?
Yeah.
Wrap it in pastry.
Right, that's life, isn't
Had
it?
you seen anyone do this before, or this is a you thing?
It came to me last night as we were driving up that we should probably wrap it in pastry. So I think the Scotch egg is pretty standard. We make that in the UK quite a
I
lot.
haven't
But
seen it before. But possibly.
No, I think,
we're not claiming credit for it, but I haven't seen it before like this.
maybe could it be called a Scotch egg Wellington?
A Scotch egg Wellington, yeah? Scotch egg pie?
Probably a pie, I'd have thought. There's not a huge amount of other
you
Wellington
have-
efforts gone into
Do
it.
you have Scotch eggs here in Australia?
I think if you get into barbecue at some point, you tend to cook a Scotch egg, but it's not super popular, no.
Because usually in the UK, like a Scotch egg would be encrusted in
Golden breadcrumb.
crumbs and deep fried.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
that's
which
how
is
we do it.
obviously very difficult to do on a barbecue. So this is a nice alternative to not deep frying, I think.
Well, I like it. And you can follow along and cook it at home as well. Okay, that brings us on to the very last part of the show, and we call it the Encore. Now, normally I would surprise Si with a photo that he's maybe never seen before and try and get his quickfire opinion on, or hangfire opinion, on his take on what the hell is happening here. Okay. Now, I did stalk you. I scrolled through your Facebook all the way to the very end, and a few photos popped out for me, and I want you to tell me what the hell is going on.
The first grill we ever made.
This is Big Mama Thornton, her name is. Big Mama Thornton.
Yeah.
So this was, the first grill that we ever made with our brother from another mother. His name's Mark. Hi, Mark, if you're watching. So this is a Texas barrel grill. You will not believe the thousands of kilos of meats we cooked on this, or would smoke them in our pits and then reheat them on this.
She was the third member of the Hang Fire team for many, many years, because what you have to remember is 13 years ago, you couldn't buy something like this off the shelf.
Yeah.
You know, now, there's many, many websites that you can go on and many producers in the UK that will build something like this for you. But back then, when we came back from America, we had no choice. So we had to make things ourselves. And welding was not a skill that I thought I would learn as a result of setting up a barbecue business.
Yeah, Shauna's done loads of welding. So you got an old barrel. So obviously you need to make sure that it's not like an oil drum or something. So we had a barrel, we got some rebar.
And put it on a stand so that we could wheel it about.
And I mean, she looks at that. This was in her sort of early days. Oh, look at her. This is such a lovely
That's
memory.
happy memories flooding back there. That was in the good old days when times were hard.
So you did have that pop-up catering business, and I guess this is the pit that you dragged along?
Yeah, for sure. So you can just lift the barrel out, and then we would squeeze this on
it. Put it in the back of the van?
Yeah, totally.
Well, this is so alongside this, and you'll see this documented in the cookbook. So we actually had two. So this is a grill, hot and fast. But at the same time, we also built a mini version of Aaron Franklin's reverse flow smokers, which is called BB King. So we had BB King and Big Mama Thornton, and actually BB King was mounted on a trailer that we used to put on the back of our old Ford Focus, and we'd bob about doing events, because you need both, don't you?
Yeah,
you need a
both.
smoker and you need a grill. So we built both.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
It's good to see that.
Now, while I was I actually got to the bottom of one of your Facebooks, and as I was doing it at the time, I mean, I'm sure people are aware, but you are a couple.
Yes.
And I thought to myself as I got to the bottom, how crazy it would be if the first photo you ever posted to Facebook, and we're probably going back maybe 15 years, this photo is.
Yeah.
And it was. It was the two. This is the first photo. You
That
ever
was
posted.
taken in Australia.
Yes.
That was in Bondi in Australia in 2003, 2004.
That's our lovely friend Michelle in the middle. Hi, Michelle.
And actually, this is part of the reason why we came back, not only to do Meat Stock in the podcast, but we actually met up with Michelle a couple of weeks ago.
You did?
Yeah.
This photo?
Yeah. I'm going to recreate that photo because we're going to see her on Sunday. I'm going to recreate that photo. I'm going to send it to you.
Okay, well, if you do that on Sunday, when we do edit the podcast, it'll
we'll
go
put it
right
in.
here.
Right.
Oh yeah, we'll try and do that. This is me pre-chins, pre-barbecue.
Look how young we are. This is what. Listen, this is what hospitality does.
Yeah, don't do it, kids.
No, this is when we lived in Australia. How funny is that?
Yeah, that is
crazy.
wild that you picked that specific picture.
And it's wild too that you've obviously been together for so long,
Yeah.
but it's very difficult to work together. Me and my wife have an understanding now where we don't. So
Look, honestly.
Well, it helps having different skill sets as well, doesn't
think
it?
that's
So there's
that's
bits
the
that
key.
I do and bits that Shauna does.
All the stuff I'm really good at, Sam's not, and all the stuff that Sam's really good at, I'm not. So we never kind of butt heads, really. I mean, we're both very creative people, so there's always a creative collision that can happen sometimes. But this year, Sam and I have been together for 25 years.
it's crazy. Well done.
long time.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And honestly, I feel like we're just going from strength to strength. It's the restaurant.
Apart from the weak knees, the weak hips, the failing high side, loss of hearing, we're going from strength
the
to
raging
strength.
blood pressure, the alcoholism, but apart from all of that, it's plain sailing.
Tip-top condition.
Okay, I've got one more for you too.
Okay.
And I think this was your 10th anniversary, is that right?
Yeah. And
And again, in Australia,
that
this
photo
is.
was taken in Australia. This is when we came to Australia. We bought this dodgy old Ford
Falcon.
which Simon was telling me earlier is one of the only cars that was actually built and made in Australia. And this thing was like a big wagon. It was so big that we could literally sleep in the back of it. And that's what we did our road trip, 68,000 miles around Australia in an old Ford Falcon. That's us.
That's celebrating our 10th
Are you actually
anniversary.
wearing that ring?
No, I can't find it.
What?
Uh-oh, 25 years coming to an end.
Yeah.
Do you know where it is?
No.
Oh, man.
Yeah, sorry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We actually, in a funny way, so actually we're both wearing our wedding rings, even though we're not married, but COVID thwarted our wedding. We were supposed to get married on the 6th of June 2020, and then we were in lockdown, so it never happened. And when I proposed to Sam all of those years ago, it was about love and romance, and now we're getting married basically because
Death
it's
and
about
taxes.
Death and taxes.
Well, you are a credit to the barbecue world, and
as
it's been
are
a
you.
pleasure to have you on the
Thank
Underseason
you, Joe.
podcast. Si's been in the studio with us as well.
He has.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming all this way, because a lot of people reach out and they say they want to come on the show, and we always say to people, look, we don't do the Zoom thing because it's just not personable enough.
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
So having you in the studio has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait for you to come and see Meatstock, to see what we do and experience it as well. And your whole career and the career that you've got in front of you is a credit to you both.
Oh, that's
Thank
very
you, Jay,
kind.
and
Yeah.
thank you, Simon. We've had a fantastic day, and I think you're right. It's good to come and meet people in person, and I think this is going to be the best episode of Underseason Barbecue show there's ever been.
Hopefully, the views will dictate that.
The music, you will not be in control of that.
I'll reframe that.
It could be the most trolled version.
This is going to be the most trolled Underseason. As soon as people see that tomato plate, they'll be like, "Who the hell are these girls?"
But listen, we're hugely excited to be here. Cannot wait for Meatstock.
bring
We are
it on.
beside ourselves with excitement, and bring on the meat music bands and bedlam.
Yes,
Awesome. All
let's
right.
do it.
Thanks heaps.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See ya.